Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick. Today, I'm talking about some of the albums I'm most looking forward to in 2025. There's a bunch of links down below. You got links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music playlist that I put together every week, and the Patreon page. So make sure you check all that out. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button down below, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. So 2024 was an incredible year for music, at least in my opinion it was. And there's a bunch of great punk albums that came out. It seemed like 2024 was the year for punk music. You had older bands like Green Day, Alkaline Trio that were releasing great albums. You had a lot of newer bands, that have just formed over the last few years that released some really good albums also. But it looks like 2025 is going to be the year for metal and hard rock. Because it looks pretty similar. You got some older metal bands that are releasing, or should be releasing new albums in 2025. And you've got a lot of up-and-coming bands that should be releasing albums also. I will say that there's very little that's definitely coming out. There's only release dates for just a few of the albums I'm going to talk about. But there should be a lot of these bands are pretty close to being on a lock for releasing new albums in 2025. But before I get into my list, make sure you drop me a comment down below. Let me know what albums you're looking forward to in 2025. Like I said, there's very little that's for certain coming out, but I think a lot of these are going to get a release. And I'm not saying it's only going to be metal bands that release albums. I think there's going to be other genres that are going to have some good albums coming out. I think we could see some more punk albums come out in 2025, but I think a majority of these metal bands are really overdue to release an album. A lot of them haven't released albums in, at least 4 or 5 years. And some of them have even announced tours for 2025 and into 2026. So, they've at least got something going on. An older band that I'm pretty certain is going to release a new album. At least they've said probably second or third quarter of 2025 is Anthrax. They haven't released a new album since 2016. Like I said, they've hinted, or I think they've actually come out and said it was going to be later in 2025, but I know a lot of times some things get pushed back, so it might be later 2025 or at least early 2026. You're going to see a new album from them. I expect to see a new Ghost album. I know that Ghost announced their 2025 tour, and they haven't named the tour, which is something that they always do. So it kind of leads me to think that they're going to have a new album out at least sometime before that tour starts. I expect to see a new Korn album this year also. I actually expected to see a new Korn album last year. I know that Jonathan Davis had said that they were in the studio, I think it was early to mid part of 2024. There's an interview where he said they were in the studio working on new material. So I expected to see something at some point this year. Requiem came out in 2021, I think. So it's been a good couple of years. I think they're due for a new album. Sleep Token is another one of those newer bands that should have a new album coming out this year. I think they've kind of hinted towards like a midsummer, early fall release. They've really gained in popularity over the last probably 2 years. I think they really need to strike while the iron is hot. So I think you're going to see something definitely from Sleep Token this year. Should be getting a new Slipknot album. I know that they've been working on stuff. I feel like they've been working on stuff for the last several years. But they did announce a new world tour. They said they should have an album in 2025. I know I'm trying to think what the name of it was. Look Outside Your Window. That's what, which I think is something they've been working on for a few years now. But it looks like we should be getting a release of it in 2025. The Darkness have already announced their album. They've got one coming out on March 28th. That is Dreams on Toast, which I've never been a big fan of The Darkness. I started following Justin Hawkins on his YouTube channel over the last probably 6 or 8 months. So I was kind of slowly started getting into their new music or into their music. But this is their first album in 4 years. Not generally my style of music, but it's one I'll definitely check out when that comes out. You've also got Bleed From Within. They're going to release Zenith on April 4th. They're a newer kind of Scottish metal band. And when I say newer, I mean like from within the last 20, 25 years. I think it was 2005 or 2006 that they've been around for. But I feel like they've gotten more popular over the last several years. Cradle of Filth, which they've been around since the early part of the 90s. They haven't released an album in 4 years. I read an article, it was probably within the last 2 or 3 weeks, that they've been heavily in the studio recording new material, so should be seeing something from them also. Dream Theater, they're going to release Parasomnia on February 7th, which is going to be their first album in 4 years. I feel like a lot of these bands, they hit that 3-4 year gap between albums. A lot of them released albums in 2020, 2021, early part of 2022. So that's why I said a lot of these guys, a lot of these bands, we're getting to the point where it's either going to be this year or next year. But from what I'm reading online or what I'm reading from articles or interviews from the bands, it sounds like they're getting pretty close to release new music. Exodus, I know they're more of a thrash band, but I know they've been working on new material. Halloween, so they're going to be releasing a new album in 2025. It'll be their first album in 4 years. So that's what I said. It's like a lot of those bands are getting to that 4-year gap. Somebody I didn't even know was still working on new material is King Diamond. Looks like they've got St. Lucifer's Hospital in 1920. It's supposed to be coming out at some point this year. It'll be the first album they've released since 2007. So it's been a long time since King Diamond has released anything. Nine Inch Nails has been working on new material, which I feel like Trent Reznor is always working on new material. I know it's been, I think, 5 years since their last album came out, so they're about due for a new release. Spirit Box has been working on new material. Alter Bridge. So Alter Bridge is one that I was kind of surprised to see on the list of potentially releasing a new album in 2025, because Alter Bridge, most of the guys have been on tour with Creed all of last year. So I'm not sure where they found time to squeeze in to get in the studio to work on new music. And then, of course, Iron Maiden, they should be releasing their follow-up to Senjutsu sometime in 2025 also. So like I said, a lot of these metal bands should be releasing new music in 2025. And that's why I feel like 2025 might be the year of metal, because bands like Iron Maiden, like when they released Senjutsu back in 2021, it was a huge album. It was up for a bunch of awards. It hit #1 in a bunch of different countries. It actually hit #3 on the Billboard 200 here in the U.S., which is a big feat for a metal album. So, like I said, a lot of these bands have been gaining momentum over the last several years. So I think they're all due to release new music, and I think it's going to be a big year for them. And outside of metal, I think there are other genres that could have big releases this year. Mac Miller's releasing Balloonerism here in just a couple of weeks. I think it's January 17th that one comes out. It's his 7th album. It's actually the second album since his death that's been released. It's all tracks been recorded. I think it was like 2012 and 2013. It was right around the time that he released Faces that a lot of that stuff was recorded. The Weeknd is going to be releasing Hurry Up Tomorrow on January 24th. It's going to be another big album. It's going to be that's the third in a trilogy of releases for him. Started with After Hours in 2020, then Dawn FM in 2022, and now this album. So it's that should wrap up that. Both those albums were big releases also. I think it's going to be a big release for them. Kind of a band that I think has kind of gone under the radar over the last several years is Helicopters. They're releasing their new album Overdriver on January 31st. They're a Swedish, I guess garage rock is the best way to put it. I know The Cure just released their first album in 16 years, but when that album came out, when Songs of a Lost World came out, Robert Smith said that he had already been working on material for the next Cure album and for his own solo album. So I'm hoping, maybe I don't think we'll see a new album from The Cure this year, but I'd love to see the Robert Smith solo album come out this year also. I know there's nothing definite, but I think we're going to see, or we could see, a new Alice in Chains album this year. It's been, 2018 when Rainier Fog came out, which is a great album. I know a lot of people like to crap on the post Lane Staley albums, but there was some really good stuff on that album. I thought they did a really good job with it. I know Jerry Cantrell just released his solo album last year, which was a huge hit. I know a lot of people ended up on a lot of people's best of list at the end of the year. And he's kind of hinted that we could see something from Alice in Chains in 2025. So fingers crossed, we'll see something from them. I know MXPX has been in the studio for at least off and on over the last year. Their new album came out, I think it was 2023 when their last album came out. So I think that we might not see that for another year or so, but I know they have been working on new music. I think they've released a couple of new singles over the last several months. So we could see something from them also. So when I saw Guns N' Roses on a list of a potential 2025 release, I laughed, because I know they've released a couple of new-ish, I'm going to put new in quote marks or quotation marks over the last year or so. But those are all tracks that Guns N' Roses have had for 20 years that they're passing off as new material. Yes. Could they release a new album in 2025? Absolutely. Could their next album come out in 2035? It's just as equally possible. So, I'd love to see new material from them. They're one of those bands that I don't think they're ever going to be able to recapture what they were in the 80s and 90s, but I don't think they really need to. I think, Chinese Democracy, I might be in the minority. I thought it was a really good album. There's some really classic tracks on there. And I will say that if you go back through and listen to Chinese Democracy, and then you listen to those tracks played now with the newer band or the new version of Guns N' Roses, I think those live versions of those songs are even better than what they were on the album. So I'd love to see them, I guess, have some new material to put together and, kind of move forward with, I guess. Another band that I'm really expecting to see new material from this year, even though they haven't really announced anything, and they really haven't even hinted towards anything, is Rise Against. I know they've been really consistent over their career of it's normally about every 3 years, 4 years max before they release new material. Their last album came out in 2021. So we're due for an album this year. And I think, they're just getting better with age. Their last album I thought was one of the best ones that they ever did. They just announced a new tour with Papa Roach for 2025, which I'm excited to go see them. So it's I'd love to see them have some new material for that one. Youngblood is another younger musician I know has been working on new material. I'm interested to see where he goes musically, because he's changed a lot over his first several albums. I love Weird, which was the album that came out before his self-titled album. I thought it was one of the best punk albums of the last 5 or 6 years, especially from a newer artist. But he kind of changed a little bit on a self-titled album. We'll see where he goes moving forward, though. I guess it's been kind of the same way with Mod Sun. He's been slowly kind of releasing some singles over the last several months, but I'd love to see him release a new album, because I'd love to see where he goes musically also. He's really changed over the course of his career. But I feel like I think more content releasing singles than actually putting together a full album, but we'll see what he ends up doing. I know he's been in the studio recording music for at least the last 6 or 8 months. So, 2025 I feel like is a perfect time for him to release something. So in 2023, Youth Fountain released the album Together and Lonesome. Ended up being one of my favorite albums of that year, even though I didn't really discover it until the early part of 2024. They're rumored to be releasing some new music this year, and they're one of those bands where I kind of look at them as where, the future of rock music could be going. So, if you're unfamiliar with them, definitely go back and check that album out. Absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite albums of the last several years. Scooped Up is another new up-and-coming band. Their album The Runs was one of my favorite albums last year. I know they've been released or in the studio working on new music. I think we might see something towards the end of 2025, maybe the beginning part of 2026. But like I said with Youth Fountain, I think Scooped Up is a band that's going to be the future of what punk music is. And then the last one I got, I think, is probably more wishful thinking than anything, and that's My Chemical Romance. I know, so the band reformed back in 2019. Actually, they actually got back together in 2017. So they've been working on material for 8 years, potentially. And they have released some new material since they reformed or officially reformed in 2019. They've gone on tour. I feel like the last few years, though, I've been waiting for them to release a new album and have seen nothing yet. I think 2025 could be the year that we see it. I know there was a lot of rumors, I think it was early 2024, that they were in the studio with Rob Cavallo working on new material, working on a new album. And there's a lot of people that thought it was going to come out last year. I think I even talked about the potential of a new album last year when I did my most anticipated albums video. So hopefully we'll see something in 2025. I feel like they're kind of along the same lines as Guns N' Roses, though. It's like going to be every single year we're like, okay, is it going to be this year that we're going to see something new? Well, that's all I got for you today, guys. Thanks for checking the show out. Make sure you drop me a comment down below. I'd love to know what you guys think. What are you guys most looking forward to in 2025 as far as new releases go? This is a whole lot of conjecture, to be honest. Like, I really don't know what's coming out. There's only 3 or 4, maybe 5 albums I know for sure that we have release dates for. A lot of this is just rumors from the band saying, hey, we could be releasing something, second, third, fourth quarter, 2025. But we'll see what we end up getting, though. I think, like I said in the beginning, I think 2025 is going to be a great year for music. I feel like I've said that for the last 5 years, though. I think we're really where we are right now. I think we are in the middle of a rock renaissance. There's a big period of time, I'd say from 2000, I'd say probably 2008 to 2018, where I don't think there really was a whole lot going on. Yes, there were some great rock albums released over that span, but I feel like really since 2018, rock has been gaining momentum every single year, and we're getting more and more great releases coming out. And it's not just these older bands. It's also a lot of new up-and-coming bands that are going to be the future of what rock music looks like. And judging off of what they released over the last several years, I think the future looks really bright for rock as an umbrella. Yes, you can put metal in there, there's punk in there, there's pop, everything else included in that rock umbrella. But I don't know, let me know what you guys think. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. That's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.